Since the 1980s, we have seen crimes exactly like this. Angry, psychotic, depressed young men, mentally ill, haven't been treated, with a triggering event that causes them to emerge into rage, want to go out in a blaze of glory.
Eli Williamson, co-founder of Leave No Veteran Behind. You work to stop violence in Chicago. What is happening to young men in our culture that is causing them particularly to go off the deep end? None of these incidents involve women or girls.
Well, first things first, we tend to focus on the events that are make the news. But with our organization, we focus on the events that don't make the news. Many of these young men have faced a lack of investment of time, energy, and resources, specifically for those individuals who have mental health issues. They have not had the type of investment of time and peer mentorship. Here in Chicago, we actually take veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm a veteran of both Iraq and Afghanistan, and we actually peer mentor these youth around community resiliency strategies. And what is that? We actually give them roles around safety in our communities so that they understand that they are not only part of, not only a cause, but part of the solution as well. And so those are some of the strategies that we use, but I think it's important to understand that when you don't invest into
Let me jump in there and ask you, do you think you've had a kid who could have been one of these gun-crazed shooters and you've taken them off the ledge? That's a yes or no.
Yes, absolutely. We work with young men every day who are about to make poor decisions, and we make sure that they are directed into areas that will not only benefit them, but benefit the community as well.
Well,
I think one of the things that we have to recognize, yeah, sure.
I'll get back to you, but I want to say this. You know, listen, we've been debating gun control for decades, and I'm not saying stop debating it, but guns are a fact of life in America. Guns are not going anywhere, okay? Whether you're in favor of gun control or against it, this is our reality. We have to deal with life on life's terms. I wrote a book about why this might be happening. It's called Addict Nation. And I presented the theory that Americans are addicted to violence. The average American kid sees 200,000 violent acts and 16,000 murders on television by 18. Okay? That doesn't include video games. That's the last 2 or 3 generations, the very first in humankind to be exposed to that level of sadism and carnage. Those numbers, again, they don't account for the internet and video games like the latest version of Grand Theft Auto that had $800 million in sales in a single day. So we are addicted to violence, and all addiction is progressive. You develop a tolerance, you become more desensitized, you need more of the same to get the charge that you're seeking. So it progresses. That's why drunks get worse. That's why drug addicts get worse. That's why our violence is getting worse. And I want to put that to Ramani Durvasula, clinical psychologist. Do you see that point?
I see your point to a point. I think a subset of people may be sort of addicted to violence, but I think by and large, Jane, people are just used to it. It has become, again, everyone keeps calling it the new normal. We have become what we call habituated to it. We're used to it. It's part of what we see all over the news. Kids are used to hearing about it. So everyone is just getting used to it. And I think as a result, we do wait too long to get help for people. And I think men in our society are undertreated for mental health problems. And even when they start getting more agitated, again, we're sort of used to it at this point, so we let it go.
Well, we've got to do something. And the first step in acknowledging a problem, the first step in solving a problem is to acknowledge it, to say, this is a problem. It's like hitting bottom on alcoholism, where you start to see yourself as other people see you, and you have a moment of clarity. I think we as an American culture need to have that moment of clarity, hit bottom, and take a look at ourselves and start with, we've got a problem. We've got a big problem. Then, and only then, can you say, okay, here's what I'm going to do to fix it. All right?
But
later.
Yeah, but Jane, violence sells. It sells.
Well, that's part of the addiction. Of course.
Yeah.
Just like alcohol sells and drug sells and porn sells.
Yeah,
violence sells.
Absolutely.
People are making money off addiction. That is for sure. Addictive behavior. There's a lot of money to be made when somebody absolutely has to have something. And that includes drugs, alcohol, violence. Eli.
Absolutely. I think one of the things, yes, Yeah, I think one of the things we also have to do is we also have to reframe the discussion around young men as not only being the source of these problems, right, but also as a source of solutions. I talk to plenty of young men every day who come up with very unique opportunities for us to engage these issues in a proactive way so that we're not demonizing them further and also not providing them the opportunities and options to really incentivize good behaviors and good standards amongst our young men. And we do that. We have primarily minority men we work with, but that's something that we have to do. I think the whole conversation sometimes goes around this being the outcome of our young men, but we need to start talking about what are the opportunities for our young men so that they can become leaders and not actually be a part of the violence that we're talking about.
I agree,
and our veterans,
that's why
our veterans are hoping
I'm
to lead that as well.
Yeah, and I applaud you for being part of the solution, and that's one of the reasons why I think we got to get boys away from just being obsessed with trucks and guns. Get them into dancing, get them into art, get them into all these compassionate activities, and stop demonizing boys who engage in those activities. Because that's what our culture does
absolutely.
too. That's what our culture does
Absolutely.
too. They call them all sorts of names, and you know what I'm talking about. If a kid gets into art, a boy wants to dance, a boy wants to do something that is sensitive and creative, we demonize that child, and we need to embrace that.
Jane. And we give attention. We give attention to violence. We give that attention, and that's the bottom line. Kids want attention, so if they behave violently, they may get more attention. That's the bottom line here.
Well, and Jane's right. We glamorize the violence and the violent culture instead of glamorizing things that are more extracurricular. I went to a performing arts high school where kids of all genders were encouraged to participate in music, art, dance, theater, arts, literature, things of that nature. We got to get back to that.
We do, because I do believe a kid who is doing a beautiful work of art is going to be less likely to pick up a gun and go kill someone. Thank you.